This conversation was originally videotaped for the Dulwich Centre, a narrative therapy training institute in Adelaide, Australia. Its purpose was to introduce narrative practitioners to some of the concepts of critical disability theory. We are including this video on the Conversations That Matter site because we think it provides an accessible explanation of the social model of disability.
So we've been invited to interview you for Friday at Dulwich, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about critical disability and how you got to some of these ideas.
All right, critical disability theory is this very amorphous theoretical idea. So I think the easiest way to help people get into this area is this story.
Okay.
And I want to tell you about the point in my life where it was a pivotal moment that led me to see disability in a new way. And so to begin with, I was obviously born with cerebral palsy. I went to segregated school for disabled kids in Toronto. And a prominent part of that was physical therapy 3 times a week. And I like to say I was the kid that physical therapists only see in their dreams. Right? They wanted me to do 10 repetitions of a certain exercise. I did 20. They want me to hold a precarious balance position for 30 seconds. I held it for a minute. Because I was determined that I was going to live a meaningful, happy, fulfilled life. And at that time, I saw the biggest impediment to that was my disability. So it was like I declared war on my disability. That was the enemy. And for those years, I really got focused on getting into regular school. That was sort of winning the war. If I could get into regular school, and eventually I did that. In grade 8, I argued myself into regular school. But what surprised me was the war didn't end. I just changed battlefields. Because now, rather than becoming as non-disabled as I could in the therapy room, I had to become as non-disabled as I could be in the lunchroom, in the hallways. So, 3rd year in university, I'm in a pub with a bunch of my friends. And one of my friends tells a story which involves me. And when he gets to my part of the story, he imitates the way I talk. And he says, and then Norman walks up and says, "Oh, whoa, look at the lights." Oh, Fred. So afterwards I go, "Fred, why do you imitate my voice?" And "'Cause you talk like that." I go, "Yeah, Fred, but look, I'm picking up the glass in one hand, I'm articulating my words clearly, I've gotten a Academy performance here. You imitate my voice, my whole show goes out the window." And Fred looked at me and he said, "Norman, why are you trying to be non-handicapped?" And as strange as it sounds, that was the first time that question was ever put to me. We drank a lot of beer that night.
Yeah.
And around the second jug of draft, I remember saying the phrase, "the right to be disabled." I sort of sat back and listened to my own words and went, whoa. I think at that moment I could see my life changed. Because prior to that night, as in disability solely as something within my body. It was an abnormality, deficiency. But that night, what I suddenly realized was I had a people. That I saw disability rather than in a physiological context, in social context, and in a couple ways. First of all, I recognize that in every culture in the world, there are people with physical and or mental disabilities. So, I was part of that group of people. But even struck me further that throughout time, in every civilization, in every age, there have been disabled people. The Bible, the Roman, the Ming Dynasty, the Mayan culture, there have always been disabled people. Now we usually killed.
Yeah.
But we were there. I think what I realized at that moment was that I was part of the normal diversity of the human community.
So, you know what, I'm excited about what I'm seeing is the interconnections of these different kinds of struggles and making more room for others. And one thing you were kind of giving me a heads up about was this idea about relocating the problem of disability, from the medical realm into the social. Can you say something about that?
One of our mentors is a guy called John McKnight, who worked a lot in the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, trying to get the auto industry integrated. And he's a great quote. He says, "Revolutions begin when people who are defined as problems achieve the power to redefine the problem." And the example he used is the civil rights movement really began to get momentum when they were able to redefine the problem from a black problem to a white problem. Right? It's not a problem of black skin. It's a problem of white prejudice, white privilege. Right. Yeah. So that was a really key line for me. So if you think of the predominant narrative in our society, the progressive narrative, the progressive story in which we all get immersed in, this idea that people shouldn't be disabled. Now, for example, me. You, knowing me, you may be fully committed to inclusive education, disability rights, etc., right? But on another level, on a deeper level, you may work from the presumption that Norm is not the way he should have been. Yeah. Norman should have been born non-disabled. Something happened at birth. So now Norman is not the way he should have been. Yeah. If you work from that presumption, you're locating the problem in me. Yeah. All right. So, for example, the way this is explained, if I come up this set of stairs, and you see that set of stairs and my inability to go up the stairs as a mobility impairment. Now you can be, fully in favor of ramps, etc., but the belief is in installing that ramp is to accommodate the problem in me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To relocate the problem means we go from the presumption that people should not be disabled into the idea that disability is an inherent part of the human experience. Bodies break down, accidents happen. This idea that we should be non-disabled throughout our lives is delusional. Once we see disability as an inherent part of the human experience, then when you see me wheeling up the set of stairs, my inability to get up those stairs isn't a result of the mobility impairment in me. It's that this building was built on the premise that no one should be disabled. So that ramp, rather than being an accommodation for me, is actually a correction of an architectural error. So when we see, for example, a simple example as a ramp being an architectural correction rather than an accommodation for me, that's a very specific example of relocating the problem.
Yeah.